Well, welcome to our experiment. We're going to see if the fan clutch is working on this WorkHorse 8.1. We got the radiator all blocked off, fixing to start it up, and see what the temperature does. The fan should kick on around 205. So let's see how the test proceeds. We'll see how it does. Alright, so we got the engine up to 225. It went off. Anyway, it was 225 degrees. But look at this fan, how loose it is. I mean, that should be locking up, being tight. It should be much tighter than that. As hard as I can barely touch it, it's so dang hot. Yeah, I think we have a clutch failing. Not pulling that air through. Those kind of temperatures. What's our radiator now? Yeah, 208. So at that temperature, it tells you at 205 this thing should be locking up, and it is not locking up at all. I think we're ready for a new clutch. That's my theory. I'm sticking to it. Okay, well, let me give you an update. It is now 2 o'clock in the morning, and we've been working on this Itasca. Excuse me, I'm laying on concrete, and just got the fan loosened up. You see how I've got my little wrench here, and I got a chain holding it because it takes a lot of force to break that nut loose. So you see it's just now, come on, focus. You see it's trying to unspin or spin off now. So I'm gonna work this way, get this off the water pump shaft, and see if we can't get a new fan clutch installed. Of course, if you need to know how to install a fan clutch, I got a complete video showing how to do this step by step, so there's no need to go through all the details. So my buddy came to me with his RV, W24 WorkHorse with the 8.1 Vortec, and the fan clutch is not doing its job, not kicking on, and causing his engine to overheat. So I thought, no problem, we'll just order one. Well, unfortunately, at the moment, the OEM fan clutches are on back order. So he's trying to work his way back to Florida. And I said, well, let's see what we can do. So we did some research. We got online, did some cross-referencing, did a lot of cross-referencing, ordered several different clutches, went to parts that, you start out saying, okay, I got 8.1 Vortec. I need a fan clutch for it. How hard can it be? Well, evidently it's kind of hard because there's nothing out there that replaces the WorkHorse fan clutch. Here's the OEM clutch. And here's various ones we've tried. Like I actually got a picture here because we sent this one back already. This was a Murray fan clutch. A lot of these things cross over, but when it comes to doing the install, then they don't work. But I'm gonna try to do a modification, at least to make one of them work, so he can get home. So here's a Murray brand. It did not work. Here's a Hayden brand. I even called Hayden, the manufacturer of Hayden clutches. They make good stuff. I said, here's what I got. I got a 8.1 Vortec. I want the heaviest duty clutch you make that will fit an 8.1 Vortec. And they said, this is the one. And I think they said it would go like in a Kodiak or something like that, some big heavy duty pickup truck. It won't work either. So we finally got the closest thing we found. I think we picked this up at O'Reilly's, I believe, maybe Advance, I don't know. But anyway, it is an OEM AC Delco, but it's still not the same. It is still quite a bit different. And, well, let me show you a couple of the differences. One difference is the height. We've got about 3/8 difference here between the OEM clutch and the AC Delco quote version. Also, our bolt pattern is the same, but the thread size is different. The other problem is our centering portion is different. So let me give you an example. So let me move some stuff around here. Okay, let me show you here. So see, the original equipment clutch. What makes this special? I believe it is WorkHorse uses a special fan. These fans evidently are probably much larger. Maybe they got more blade pitch, so it pulls a lot more horsepower from the engine, a lot more torque. It just needs a bigger fan clutch, bigger than anything else we can find or buy out there. That's why it's made so different and you can't find nothing. So you can see how it centers not by the bolt mounting pattern, but by this little ridge right here all the way around. And it still has a little slot. And let me show you when you put the bolts in it. And you see they use kind of small bolts compared to the hole size. The hole's kind of large. This is the factory setup right here. Okay, I'm back. Had a phone call. But anyway, you can see how much play we got here, even from the factory one. So, but I got a plan. Let's see if it's going to work. Let me show you what I'm going to attempt to do. I've got some bigger bolts here. So let's take, well, find a place to sit this stuff. I'm running out of space. So we're going to try to attempt to mount this. I realize there's about a 3/8 difference, but that should be fine. That shouldn't be an issue, but we got to get it mounted true. So put the fan back on here. Okay, now you see the big difference here. Now what I keep running into is this part here. See the way this is machined? This is something WorkHorse has done kind of special, I believe. They've made this hole bigger than all the other fan clutches we come across is designed for a fan that's got a smaller diameter hole. So, but I believe I can make this work because I can drill out these holes slightly, just enough, and I've already done a test run because here's the bolts that match the new fan clutch. And I got me a 3/8 hole and this nice snug fit. So my plan is to drill this hole out to 3/8, and then I'm going to put the 4 bolts in there that should line me up and give me a true center. And then in the future, when he goes back to an OEM clutch, it'll still work. All he'll have to do is maybe add a washer to the original bolts. Because remember, here's the original clutch. It's going to be smaller. So when he goes back to original later on, he'll be using, let me show you exactly. All right, so when it goes back to the OEM later on, this hole's going to be now 3/8, a little bit bigger. All you got to do is just add a washer, and that'll be good. Because remember, the OEM keeps it true and centered based on these little lugs here. It has nothing to do with the bolt holes themselves. So the fact they're going to be drilled out to 3/8 is going to have no effect on the trueness of the fan. So I'm going to get my drill bit, drill some holes, and we'll get started. All right, let me show you. It only takes just a little bit of reaming here on this 3/8 drill bit. Okay, so I couldn't drill and record at the same time. So, I mean, what I did, I just took it here and punched out 3/8. Didn't take just very little drilling. But then it was just a little bit tight. So then I just reamed it slightly. Just did a roll like that, and that's all it took. So now it's a nice, snug hole. Those bolts, I actually have to kind of screw them down. Nice and snug. So now we'll bolt this up, the fan clutch up to it, get them good and tight. And then we will put this crawl underneath that RV and get it installed. Well, once again, before I mount this up, I wanted to show the differences in these things. Try to get a side shot. Okay, so there's a Hayden, and there's AC Delco, and there's the OEM. You see how much bigger and heavier it is, much thicker. Like I said, there's just nothing out there in the marketplace that I can find that's going to replace this WorkHorse chassis part. So, of course, I'll put a link to the OEM item down below this video so you can get the right one. But if you're in a pinch, this may work. At least we'll get him back home to Florida, so then they can hopefully in a month or so these will be available again. In fact, mine's showing signs of wear, and I believe when we start getting around 80,000 miles, that's where he's sitting at 80,000 right now, and I'm a little over 70,000 on our 2005 WorkHorse. And I notice when I'm sitting at a stoplight, my temperatures will slowly start to rise, get about over 220 degrees sitting idling, and the clutch is not locking up and engaging like it used to. So I believe that may be a common thing with these older WorkHorses when we get about that type of mileage. These clutches are starting to fail. So keep that in mind, and if you want to be, proactive instead of reactive, just go ahead and put one on. So that's what I'm going to do. I'm not going to wait for it to completely fail on me and screw me up on a trip sometime. So let me get this mounted on, and then we'll head outside. Well, as you can see, I'm editing this video, getting ready to put it up. I wanted to add some information to it. I was talking about these fan clutches. One thing that's vitally important is monitoring our temperatures on these engines and monitoring them digitally. We cannot trust that goofy gauge. Where's it at? Yeah, this little goofy gauge here, you cannot trust that gauge to know what temperature your engine is. We need something digital, and what I recommend, getting you a scan gauge. Now, this is the older scan gauge 2. I'd recommend now getting the new Scan Gauge 3. In fact, I've got one right here in front of me. I've been doing some testing on it. It's fabulous. It has Wi-Fi. You can update it over Wi-Fi. One more important upgrade is now you have 9 bits of data that you can watch instead of just 4 on the old one. And I think it gives you 3 different screens of this data. So you get, different layouts. Monitoring fuel trims, you can monitor fuel temperature digitally, not fuel temperature. You can monitor engine temperature digitally, transmission temperature, and that's what we need. So if you have something like this and you're monitoring your engine temperature and you're sitting at a stoplight, because at 205 degrees, this fan should be locking up, start pulling those temperatures back down. If you're sitting at a stoplight and you're like my RV right now, it's starting to slowly creep up to like 220. And I know the fan's not locking up, so as soon as they become available, I'm going to get me one and put one on. Because remember, at all costs, it's best to go with the OEM clutch right here, WorkHorse clutch from Brazels. But we're in a spot right at the moment where they're on back order, so I had to help this fellow out to get him back on the road. So at least I came up with something that will get him home. And he did report back to me. He was on the way home. He was seeing like 195 degrees on the interstate. When he hit a hill, it was no higher than 205. So it is working for him. Okay, so while we're talking about cooling, I want to mention about these cooling fans. You're in front of your. This is of course on the W24 W22 chassis. You'll have these cooling fans on most of them. But there was a couple of years I think they removed them, maybe around 2007 or 8. I'm not really sure. But they removed them, then they realized their mistake, and I think they come out with a kit and where you can put them back on. So, but these fans, the way they operate, they engage 2 ways. One way they engage is when you turn on your air conditioner. When you turn on your air conditioner, and on the dryer on the air conditioner, there is a switch. When that switch sees 235 psi, it will engage these fans to help provide cooling on the condenser. So, but another way these fans engage, even if you don't have the air conditioner on, is when the computer sees 221 degrees. So that tells you when that computer sees 221, it says, hey, we're just getting too hot. Something's not working. We need some extra cooling. So it will engage these electric fans to get those temperatures back down. So another thing I want to point out, the importance of having these digital gauges. There's 2 things that blows up our 8.1 Vortecs. One is sudden loss of coolant, which we'd overheat. Another is running lean, and the way you can monitor that is monitoring your fuel trims. If you watch your fuel trims, you'll keep your engine from running lean. And I talk more about that in my video about cleaning. If you just go to my channel here and type in MAF, you'll pull up this video here, and I go into great detail about why it's so important to monitor our fuel trims. Because if most people, when they blow up their engines, a lot of times they run lean. And if you monitor your fuel trims, you can prevent that from happening. So good information. You got to have those fuel trims at your fingertips. And I'll be coming out with a full video on this gauge here as I'm doing more testing and stuff. Get it all hooked up for you and show you all the magic it can do. All right, back to the video. Okay, so before I was putting this together, I noticed something I didn't like. I was feeling like a little bit of a burr here, right where I ran the drill bit through to open up those holes. So I got me a little reamer here on my drill. So I'm just going to put a little camphor on that, get rid of that lip. Oh, it feels much better. Alright, so just something to keep in mind. Okay, it's assembly time. You see how rocky loose it is, but when we get these bolts in here, that will not be a problem. So they're going to fit in each hole nice and snug. So let me get all these tightened down, torqued up, and we'll go crawl underneath an RV. Okay, there we go. She's all torqued up. It's not factory, but hopefully we'll get him home. Looks pretty good, so we'll see how it performs once we get it bolted up and get it started up and get some temperature on it. Yeah, it's after midnight and I'm once again under another RV. So I'd like to put this fan clutch back on here, but before I do, I wanted to point out a couple things. Pretty common issue, sometimes these rubber flaps are gone, and that will cause issues with your cooling because you need to keep this cowling and everything sealed up to the radiator, so when the fan pulls air, it's pulling the cool air through the radiator, not bypassing it and getting the heat, because these little things can fall out. In fact, on the other side, on the right hand side, it's already gone, it's missing. So as a fix, I put me in some foil tape in order to, there you go, I think you can see it like that. So I put that foil tape in there to keep it from sucking that hot air around, force the air to come through the radiator like it needs to. So you can see I got my wrench and stuff. Now if you need to do a complete job, like I've already got a video showing this complete job, removing and installing a fan clutch, so there's no need to go into the whole thing. So I'm just gonna, you can see it's threaded up here. I just gotta get that started and get that tightened up good, and then I can remove this wrench. You see I got the little chain on here, so it held it tight while I broke it loose because it was on there pretty tight. Okay, I got it started. It's kind of awkward getting it started because it's so dang heavy, and you want to make sure you got it on there a couple of turns before you let go, because you don't want that thing falling on your head. And it's not left-handed threads, it's normal thread. So we'll just spin this on here until that nut stops turning, and then I got my wrench. Put the wrench on it here. That thread's on there quite a ways, doesn't it? Any day now. Okay, there it went. Okay, see now she's tight. See how the new clutch feels? You try to turn it, I mean, it won't turn hardly at all. Let me show you here. See, even though I try to spin it, it just won't spin. So that's how a new clutch acts. As they get older, you'll spin it, and you may get a quarter turn out of it, or heaven forbid you get a full turn. It really wore out then. And then I got my special wrench I took here. That's not it. Actually, I think it's a 33 millimeter. I took an old wrench. It's actually 1 1/4, but I took a grinder to it, made it bigger. That's not it. There it is. Turn around. There we go. Yeah, it was an old 1 5/16. You can see where I grounded at the bottom to open it up a little bit more. So that way I can get it up in here on that big nut and get it good and tight. Yeah. Get my camera in the right spot. There you go. So let's turn the engine. So what I'm going to do, see I've got this chain here. Because to break it free, I used this chain, took onto the frame so it wouldn't rotate the crank. So now I'm going to reposition the chain over here to the other side so I can get it good and tight. So let me get that done. And you see the special wrench I got, and I carry this with us as we travel, along with this little piece of chain, just in case I ever have a water pump failure on the road. I can easily change it out myself. And in my video, I'll put a link to it, my complete job where I change this fan clutch. Or you also, because if you need to do a fan clutch, you need this tool, and if you do a water pump, you need this tool. You got to be able to hold that pulley still as you unspin this big fan off there. Otherwise, the engine just keeps cranking. And you see what it is. I got my chain run up over the frame, comes down about the right back side, hooks right here. So that way I can crank on it, and that chain will get good and tight. And the engine's not going to try to rotate when I get the wrench up here and put some good torque on it. Because you sure don't want that fan to unscrew and get into your radiator. That would be a bad day. Okay, quick tip. Ratchet wrench is great for this thing because those bolts are a booger to get to. I got one more to get, but that little ratchet wrench, that's a time saver. You can get in there and tighten those little screws up because they're kind of a tight spot to get to. Alrighty, so bolted up and ready to go. But you see, you can't spin that thing for hoots. So I'm gonna start up here, call it 3 o'clock position. I just can't, you can't get no spin on it at all. So that shows you what a new clutch should act like compared to an old wore out clutch. So it's 1 o'clock in the morning, so it's not like I can start it up and test it now. So tomorrow we'll start this up and we'll cover up the front of the radiator with some plastic and see if we can't get this thing to engage and keep this thing cool. Alright, test number 1. Perform this test. I got a shower curtain blocking off the radiator. So now we're going to start this thing up and let her get warmed up and see if that clutch will engage. Alright, this is a cold start. You see we're only at, yeah, Engine temp's only 91 degrees. But it does have a good sound to it. So I'm gonna let it warm up, let it get good and warm, and we'll see how it acts. Okay, now you notice the fan has got real quiet. I notice they do that. When they're initially cold, they turn real fast and then they quiet down. So we're at 121 degrees, fairly quiet, which would be normal. You just have to wait for it to warm up, see if it locks up. I hear it locking up already. I hear it speeding up. Alright, now it's slowing back down again. It's kind of interesting. So at 137 degrees, it's like the fan's barely turning, which I guess would be normal. It doesn't have that. It does not have that roar to it at all. But I'm assuming when we hit 205, it should lock up. You just have to wait and be patient. Oh, it's finally starting to kick in. It took a while. That noise? That's what we're on. That's the sound I've been waiting for. It took it a while. You have to get to 225. But now I'm happy it's doing its job. Okay, I'm real pleased how this turned out because it's an 88-degree day here, pretty hot. And now we're down to 195. I've removed that shower curtain I had in front of the radiator. And I'm still getting a good loud roar on that fan. And the temperature's dropped really quick. So, of course, the true test will get it on the road, but I think it's going to be fixed. I don't know how long, because remember, this is not the OEM clutch. This is something I've made work just so I can get him home. So time will tell. I'll report back.